In Mexico's brutal drug war, one mysterious military figure gained notoriety for his relentless pursuit and unorthodox treatment of cartel members. Known as the Marino Loco, this Navy officer's controversial tactics struck fear into the hearts of criminals, but also raised questions about the blurring lines between justice and vengeance. The Mexican drug war, a protracted conflict between the government and powerful drug cartels, has ravaged the nation since 2006. What began as a government crackdown on organized crime quickly escalated into a full-scale war, with cartels fiercely defending their lucrative trade in cocaine, heroin, and other illicit substances. At the center of this conflict are several notorious drug cartels, each vying for control over key trafficking routes and territories. The Sinaloa cartel, led by the infamous Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, emerged as one of the most dominant groups, known for its vast network and ruthless tactics. Other major players include the Gulf Cartel, the Juarez Cartel, and the Zetas, a group of former military personnel turned criminals. As the cartels grew in power and influence, they began to infiltrate and corrupt various levels of government and law enforcement. This corruption, combined with the cartel's heavily armed and well-funded private armies, made it increasingly difficult for the Mexican authorities to combat the drug trade effectively. The impact of the drug war on Mexican society has been devastating. The conflict has claimed the lives of over 150,000 people, with many more missing or displaced. The violence has torn apart communities, leaving behind a trail of grief and trauma. The cartel's activities have also undermined the rule of law, as they often operate with impunity, exploiting the weaknesses in the justice system. Beyond the direct violence, the drug war has had far-reaching consequences for Mexico's economy and social fabric. The instability and insecurity have deterred investment and tourism, hindering economic growth. The allure of the drug trade has also tempted many young people, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds, into a life of crime. The rise of the Marino Loco. The Marino Loco, whose real name is believed to be Eric Morales Guevara, rose to prominence within the Mexican Navy's ranks during the early years of the drug war. Little is known about his early life and background, but his military career would become the stuff of legend. As a member of the Mexican Navy's elite Special Forces unit, Morales received extensive training in combat tactics, intelligence gathering, and counterinsurgency operations. His skills and dedication quickly set him apart from his peers, and he gained a reputation as a fearless and uncompromising operator. However, it was Morales' unorthodox approach to fighting the cartels that truly distinguished him. Faced with the brutal tactics and seemingly endless resources of the drug lords, Morales adopted a maverick style that blurred the lines between traditional law enforcement and guerrilla warfare. One of his signature tactics was the use of humiliation as a weapon against cartel members. Morales and his team would often force captured criminals to dress in women's lingerie and pose for photographs, which they would then leak to the media. This psychological warfare aimed to undermine the machismo culture of the cartels and demoralize their ranks. Morales also employed controversial interrogation techniques, such as the use of a meat tenderizer hammer to extract information from uncooperative suspects. While these methods drew criticism from human rights advocates, Morales defended them as necessary in the face of the cartel's own brutality. Despite the unconventional nature of his approach, there was no denying Morales' effectiveness in capturing high-value cartel targets. His relentless pursuit and tactical ingenuity resulted in the arrest of numerous kingpins and the dismantling of entire criminal networks. One of his most notable achievements was the rescue of an American hostage held by cartel members in Tamaulipas. Morales and his team successfully infiltrated the heavily guarded compound and extracted the hostage without any casualties on the Navy's side, while eliminating the kidnappers in the process. As word of Morales' exploits spread, he became a folk hero to some Mexicans, who saw him as a rare beacon of hope in a war that had brought so much despair. His willingness to take the fight directly to the cartels, using their own tactics against them, resonated with a population tired of living in fear. Controversial interrogation methods. One of the most controversial aspects of the Marino Loco's war against the cartels was his use of unorthodox interrogation methods. These techniques, which often involved elements of humiliation and physical coercion, pushed the boundaries of what was considered acceptable in law enforcement and military operations. Morales' signature tactic was the use of forced cross-dressing. Captured cartel members, many of whom prided themselves on their machismo image, would be compelled to wear women's underwear, dresses, and makeup. They would then be photographed in these outfits, with the images later leaked to the media or posted on social media. The goal of this psychological warfare was twofold: to extract information from the suspects and to undermine the fear and respect that the cartels commanded. By stripping away their masculine pride and subjecting them to public humiliation, Morales sought to break the will of these hardened criminals. In addition to the cross-dressing tactic, Morales was known to employ physical coercion during interrogations. One notorious example was his use of a meat tenderizer hammer to beat information out of uncooperative suspects. This brutal technique, which left visible marks and injuries, was seen by some as a necessary evil in the face of the cartel's own brutality. The use of these controversial methods sparked intense debate within Mexico and beyond. Human rights advocates argued that such techniques violated basic principles of dignity and due process. They warned that by engaging in torture and humiliation, the Mexican authorities were undermining the very values they claimed to be defending. Critics also pointed out that information obtained through coercion was often unreliable, as suspects would say anything to stop the abuse. They argued that the use of these methods could lead to false confessions and wrongful convictions, further eroding public trust in the justice system. On the other hand, supporters of Morales' tactics argued that desperate times called for desperate measures. They claimed that the unique nature of the drug war, with its well-armed and ruthless cartels, necessitated a more aggressive approach to intelligence gathering and suspect management. Morales himself was unapologetic about his methods. In rare interviews, he defended his actions as a necessary response to the cartel's own brutality. "These are not ordinary criminals," he argued. "They torture, they dismember, they kill without mercy. We have to fight fire with fire." He also claimed that his techniques were effective in breaking the cartel's aura of invincibility. By humiliating their members and exposing their weaknesses, he sought to disrupt their operations and sow discord within their ranks. Famous operations and arrests. Throughout his career, the Marino Loco was involved in numerous high-profile operations that targeted the upper echelons of Mexico's drug cartels. His daring raids and unconventional tactics led to the capture of several notorious cartel leaders, dealing significant blows to their criminal enterprises. One of Morales' most notable successes was the arrest of Silvestre El Chive Haro Rodriguez, a high-ranking member of the Gulf Cartel. In a carefully orchestrated operation, Morales and his team stormed El Chive's heavily guarded compound in Tamaulipas, engaging in a fierce firefight with the cartel's security forces. Despite the intense resistance, Morales managed to capture El Chive alive, a rare feat in a war where shootouts often ended in bloodshed. Another high-profile arrest attributed to Morales was that of Julian Manuel Loaiza Salinas, also known as El Comandante Toro, a key figure in the Gulf Cartel's operations. Morales' relentless pursuit of Salinas culminated in a dramatic raid on his hideout, where the Navy Special Forces unit engaged in a prolonged battle with the cartel's gunmen. In the end, Salinas was captured, dealing a significant blow to the Gulf Cartel's leadership structure. Beyond his arrests of cartel leaders, Morales also gained fame for his daring rescue operations. In one instance, he led a mission to free an American hostage held by cartel members in Tamaulipas. The operation, which required careful planning and split-second timing, saw Morales and his team infiltrate the kidnappers' compound and extract the hostage unharmed while neutralizing the threat posed by the heavily armed criminals. Morales' exploits were not only discussed in military and law enforcement circles, but also gained widespread attention through his use of social media. In a departure from the typical secrecy surrounding special operations, Morales would often post images and videos of his raids and arrests on platforms like Twitter and Facebook. These posts, which often featured the humiliated cartel members in their forced cross-dressing attire, served as a form of psychological warfare against the criminal underworld. By publicly showcasing his victories and the cartel's weaknesses, Morales sought to undermine their fearsome reputation and disrupt their recruitment efforts. However, his social media presence also drew criticism from those who argued that it glorified violence and violated the suspect's rights to due process and privacy. Some accused Morales of using the platform for self-promotion, creating a cult of personality around his controversial methods. Cartel retaliation and bounties. As the Marino Loco's fame grew, so did the dangers he faced from the cartels he had sworn to destroy. His relentless pursuit of cartel leaders and his public humiliation of their members made him a prime target for retribution, with the criminal underworld vowing to stop him by any means necessary. The cartels, known for their brutal tactics and deep pockets, began to place bounties on Morales' head. These rewards, which often ran into the millions of pesos, were offered to anyone who could kill or capture the elusive Marine. The bounties served as a powerful incentive for hitmen and rival cartel factions, who saw taking down Morales as a way to boost their own reputation and earn a hefty payday. In response to these threats, Morales was forced to take unprecedented security measures. He moved frequently, never staying in one place for too long, and was constantly surrounded by a heavily armed security detail. Even his family was forced to go into hiding, their lives forever changed by the dangers posed by his work. Despite these precautions, Morales faced numerous assassination attempts. Cartel hitmen would stage ambushes lying in wait for his convoy or attempting to infiltrate his safe houses. Firefights would erupt in the streets, with Morales and his team narrowly escaping death on multiple occasions. One of the most brazen attempts on his life came from the Gulf Cartel, which had suffered greatly under Morales' campaign. In a carefully planned operation, a team of hitmen attacked Morales' convoy with high-powered weapons and explosives. The ensuing battle left several of Morales' men wounded, but the Marino Loco himself emerged unscathed, his legend growing with each failed attempt on his life. As the cartels continued to escalate their efforts to eliminate Morales, the Mexican government was forced to confront the harsh realities of the drug war. The fact that a single Marine could inspire such fear and desperation in the criminal underworld was a testament to the effectiveness of his tactics, but it also highlighted the enormous power and resources at the cartel's disposal. Criticisms and consequences. As the Marino Loco's controversial tactics gained more attention, so did the criticisms leveled against him and the Mexican military as a whole. Human rights organizations and civil liberties advocates accused Morales of crossing the line from law enforcement into vigilantism, arguing that his methods violated basic principles of due process and human dignity. Some critics pointed to allegations of corruption and misconduct within Morales' unit, suggesting that his high-profile arrests and seizures were tainted by improper practices. There were accusations of planted evidence, forced confessions, and even extrajudicial killings, all carried out under the guise of fighting the cartels. These criticisms began to take a toll on the reputation of the Mexican military, which had long been seen as one of the few institutions untouched by the corruption that plagued other branches of government. As stories of Morales' excesses spread, public trust in the armed forces began to erode, with many questioning whether the military was truly acting in the best interests of the people. There were also concerns about the potential blowback from Morales's tactics. Some experts warned that by humiliating and brutalizing cartel members, the military was only fueling the cycle of violence, creating a new generation of vengeful criminals who would stop at nothing to exact their revenge. Others argued that the focus on high-profile arrests and seizures was ultimately counterproductive, as it did little to address the underlying social and economic conditions that allowed the cartels to thrive. They pointed out that for every drug lord captured or shipment intercepted, there were countless more waiting to take their place, eager to fill the vacuum left by their fallen comrades. As the debate over Morales's methods grew more heated, the Mexican government found itself in a difficult position. On the one hand, the Marino Locos' success in capturing high-value targets was undeniable, a rare bright spot in an otherwise bleak landscape of violence and corruption. But on the other hand, the growing concerns about his tactics and their impact on the military's reputation could not be ignored. Ultimately, the government was forced to confront the reality that the drug war, as it had been fought up to that point, was unsustainable. The reliance on heavy-handed military tactics and the glorification of figures like Morales had created a situation where the lines between right and wrong were increasingly blurred, and the long-term consequences for Mexican society were becoming harder to ignore. The mysterious end of a legend. Despite his seemingly invincible aura, the Marino Locos story did not have a clear-cut ending. In the years following his most high-profile exploits, Morales seemed to vanish from the public eye, his whereabouts and ultimate fate the subject of much speculation and rumor. Some claimed that he had been killed in a secret operation, his death covered up by a government eager to avoid the embarrassment of losing one of its most famous warriors. Others suggested that he had been forced into early retirement, his controversial methods and the growing criticisms against him making him a liability for the military's top brass. There were even whispers that Morales had gone rogue, disappearing into the criminal underworld he had once fought so hard to destroy. Some said he had become a vigilante, waging a one-man war against the cartels from the shadows. Others claimed he had been bought off by the drug lords, his loyalty and expertise now serving the very forces he had once sworn to defeat. Regardless of the truth behind his disappearance, the legend of the Marino Loco continued to loom large in Mexican popular culture. His exploits, both real and imagined, became the stuff of folklore, inspiring countless movies, TV shows, and narco corridos, the ballads that celebrated the lives and deaths of the drug trade's most notorious figures. In many ways, Morales had become a symbol of the drug war itself, a figure of both fear and admiration, his methods and motivations endlessly debated and dissected. His legacy, like that of the conflict he had fought so fiercely, was one of contradiction and ambiguity, a reminder of the high stakes and moral complexities of a war with no clear end in sight.